with a former colleague of mine, Professor Candace Hoke, for JD students. And as we'll talk more throughout the session, and as many of you may have heard in some of the other materials, this is the same content that we deliver to the JD students, but adapted to be asynchronous and online, and to provide a basic grounding in law for students who are not pursuing the Juris Doctorate degree. And we're very excited today to have Spence Witten. Spence is a nationally recognized expert in cybersecurity. He has worked for a very long time for Lunar Line, which is a company we'll talk more about today, that provides a range of cybersecurity services, including cybersecurity training. And he has worked with me and the center since pretty much since its inception, or at least shortly afterwards. We got to know each other. We're both members of the Cyber Ohio Advisory Board, which is the statewide board that advises, now it's situated in the Lieutenant Governor's office, on cybersecurity issues, including training and professional development programs and educational degrees like this one. Spence, I'll let him talk more about his background, but he's been doing this for a very long time, and we were very excited when he agreed to take over the Cybersecurity 1 course and develop it for this online program, and we'll get into that a little bit more in the program.
Thank you, Brian. So just briefly what we're going to do today, we just went over the introductions, and then we'll have Spence and Brian lead you all through a wonderful discussion about the careers in cybersecurity. Spence will speak a little bit about his Cybersecurity 1 course, and then we'll go into a question and answer. But I want to make sure that you know that you can ask a question at any time. I will monitor the chat box and the Q&A. So should you have a question while Brian and Spence are speaking, please go ahead and ask it, and we will answer it in real time. So without further ado, Brian, I'm going to toss it back over to you, and you and Spence can get started.
Great. Thanks again, Julie. So wanted to open today with a discussion about the relevance of a degree from a law school in cybersecurity, because of course at first blush it might seem like the two are not that closely related. And for those of you who were able to attend a couple of weeks ago, we had a lawyer slash technologist, Tim Opsitnik, who's also part of this program and a part of the center, telling us about it from the legal perspective. And today we're going to talk to Spence and who is not a lawyer, although he interacts and is friends, I think, with many lawyers. At least he pretends to be.
Reluctantly.
But Spence, selectively. Very good. So Spence, tell us a little bit from your perspective, working on the technical side of cybersecurity, what is the relevance of understanding the legal environment and a degree from a law school like ours?
Absolutely. So, hello everyone. As you know, both Julie and Brian have mentioned, my name is Spence Witten, and I work for a small company called Lunar Line. I have been in the cybersecurity field for over a decade now, and I'll talk about this a little bit more later. But I came to cybersecurity through a really, kind of odd and twisty, windy route that had absolutely nothing to do with technology at all. And then since then, I've developed. I'm not going to sit there and call myself a technical cybersecurity expert. I'm not like the world's best hacker, but I've learned those skills, and I've learned how to apply those in practical settings, and taking a path that we're trying to replicate for this program here. But so back to Brian's original question. So one of the really cool things about cybersecurity, and the students in this program come from a diverse set of backgrounds. I mean, we have folks from technical, non-technical, legal, non-legal, business, government, nonprofit, all over the spectrum here. And the cool thing about cybersecurity is that it is a multidisciplinary challenge. So it has organizational elements, it has human resource elements, it has technical elements, and kind of overarching all of that is law and regulatory frameworks. And so while you don't need to be a lawyer to dive into cybersecurity, and so in some ways it's almost a disadvantage, right? Because you have to pick up, spend so much time and effort in school, and you got to learn a lot of different areas and pass the bar in law, which is it's one way to get into to cybersecurity, but it's almost better to have that, very multidisciplinary focus where you're understanding the technical side and you're learning the legal side and the regulatory compliance side, because that tends to be what drives most organizations' approach to cybersecurity. So it definitely drives how they react to breaches and incidents. Obviously, that law is a huge one, but it actually reaches into day-to-day operations for companies in a wide spectrum of industries because they're subject to regulatory compliance. And again, you don't need to be a lawyer to understand that and to contribute meaningfully to an organization, but you do have to have a grounding in those laws, understand what they mean, and have a basic, lawyers like to use language in unique ways, right? Words tend to mean different things to lawyers and have a lot more weight, and so it's very helpful to have that backing as a foundation from which to grow a wonderful cybersecurity career. So once you have that legal backing and that foundational knowledge of these regulatory compliance frameworks, we can take your career in so many different directions. You can stay focused on the law, you can get really into privacy, or you can take it all the way over to the technical side and learn how to be a technical security expert. And so what to me is unique about this program across the nation, I mean, I don't think there's anybody that really approaches the challenge the way we do with this program, but what's unique about this is that we give you that framework, both the technical and the legal side, to jumpstart your career, right? Make you immediately relevant and attractive to employers, but also lay that foundation so that you can take your career in any direction you want. And again, that to me is one of the coolest things about cybersecurity. I think we have this kind of misinterpretation that it is all technical, it's all folks in hoodies sitting in dark rooms doing weird things with computers. And that's actually really far from the truth. It is very people focused. It's very day-to-day ops. A lot of it actually isn't even technical. And it's an arena where lots of different people from lots of different backgrounds can make a difference, not just in, organizational improvement in security posture, but also on behalf of the nation. And so again, having that framework of law and understanding the regulatory compliance side and having that foundation is just invaluable. And it's something that our program really focuses on and makes us unique nationwide. Across any program that you could be looking at for any graduate school.
Yeah, and thanks for that, Spence. And I want to pick up on a few points that you raised. So first of all, the reason to pursue this, if you are in, say, a compliance role or HR or non-technical role where you're dealing with cybersecurity over the JD, is that, as you mentioned, the JD is, with the certificate that we developed, is 90% law. And then you get a little bit of this if you can cram it in around doing the bar. So it's a much bigger, intensive dive into the legal side, whereas this gives you a very thorough grounding to deal with lawyers and to deal with those legal materials. But it focuses very much on the context of cybersecurity, although we do go into very, some general topics around contracts, tort law, administrative law, and even some constitutional law in the Introduction to American Law course. And on the technical side, we don't go extremely deep. We don't provide you with the same kind of technical background that you'd get from, say, an undergraduate CS degree. But if you're already in a technical role and you've got the technical grounding, then this is the kind of stuff that you need and will be valuable as you move up the ranks and interact with the C-suite or ultimately enter the C-suite, and certainly interacting with counsel and the compliance folks.
And so, actually, Brian, we have great questions. We have great questions already. So Rachel is asking, and it's probably one that you and I should tackle together. So she's kind of trying to decide between, this program or just going straight in for a JD. And so I actually don't know what it's like not being a lawyer. I don't necessarily know what it's like to live day to day in cybersecurity on the law side. So Brian, could you give her some advice on how to choose a JD, and then I'll dive in with, what the difference is vis-a-vis this program? Did we lose you, Brian?
Brian, you may be muted. It looks like you muted yourself.
Oh, sorry about that. Absolutely. So Rachel, to answer your first question, this program is styled a Master of Legal Studies, but other institutions sometimes call it a Master's in Jurisprudence, or the various names, but a master's in law, as distinct from a Juris Doctorate, is essentially a degree that gives you a very thorough grounding in the basics of law, but doesn't go as nearly as deep and isn't as long as a Juris Doctorate program. Juris Doctorate programs typically are 3 years full time, whereas most masters in law degree, however they're styled, like ours, would be the equivalent of 1 year full time, but almost all are structured to be part time and accessible to professionals. So that's the main difference. And then when it comes to the JD, as we mentioned before, the JD is just a much more extensive program. Within it, if you were to say take the JD program at Cleveland Marshall, you could get access to the same courses that we offer in the online Master of Legal Studies as part of a concentration or certificate within the JD. But most of the courses you're taking, including all of your first year, are a very structured sequence that give you the grounding you need to be able to actually practice law, be in a courtroom, and construct contracts and things like that. And then everything that you need to pass the bar, which is, again, a much more extensive program.
And I think one of the things to think about, from the non-legal side is that when, if you're going to head down the JD path and become a lawyer, I think you need to really think carefully about whether or not you really truly love the law, and you really truly, and talk to some lawyers and understand their day-to-day life, and do you really, really love that day-to-day life? And because that is a commitment. So, I mean, going to law school is kind of like going to medical school, right? I mean, you're setting yourself up for, a lifetime of very focused study. And, it's not cheap. Obviously, it's expensive, and it's a big time commitment to go to law school. And I think you really have to love it. And so I've known a lot of people who've headed the JD route and come out and thrilled with it because they found that they really love the law. They love teaching the law. They love practicing the law. They love life in a courtroom. They like law in firms, or they like law even inside organizations. But if you have doubts about that, our program and the MLS program here is, again, to use the word again, it's a multidisciplinary engagement that's designed to set you up to take various different forks in the road. And so, to me, if you're already out in the world, you're working, you're already working and definitely working in technology. But even if you're not, I mean, if you're out working for various different organizations and you're just touching on cybersecurity, or you're just kind of curious about it, but you're not super committed to the life of becoming and being a lawyer, this is a program for you. I think you'll know the answer to that. I mean, you'll know if you've looked honestly at what life as a lawyer is like and you just are really jazzed about that, or vice versa, if you've looked at that and decided that's not for you. And if it's not for you, this provides you the legal tools you need to contribute to that conversation in an organization. I mean, obviously, you're not going to go practice law with this degree. It's not what it's set up for. But you can, sit down in the conversations with, integrating security language into contracts. Or you can sit down at the table and talk about regulatory compliance issues. Or, like Brian and I do, we help write legislation for the state of Ohio. And I contribute to that without being a lawyer, but having this background helps. And so I think ultimately, obviously, you're the only one that can answer that question. But I think you'll know the answer when you think a little bit about whether or not you really, really love the law. And I think that needs to be the decision criteria for JD versus this program.
Yeah, and to just put it a little more straightforwardly, if you think you want to practice law, absolutely you have to have the JD. If you think you're interested in legal concepts, you're either already working or you imagine yourself taking on a role where you're dealing with legal concepts, but you're more interested in the business side, or you're in a technical role and you're interested in advancing on the technical side, then this is the program for you. It's really the JD, you have to go through that extensive training if you want to practice law, which, as Spence said, is a very different approach. You can practice law increasingly in this field, especially privacy and cybersecurity sort of straddling that line. There are a number of, many firms now have dedicated practice groups, but you'll be doing it as a lawyer, and you need to come out from that role. And quite frankly, we have lots of lawyers who are interested in this program. And if there are any lawyers out there already who have the JD, I'm happy to talk to you about how we can configure things so that you don't get the basic background in law, but we move you through and takes as a replacement some more advanced courses on the cybersecurity side. So Elizabeth has a related question. As a current undergraduate student, who has 30 plus years of business management experience, including 10 years with law firms, so she knows that environment. Is there a degree she should consider as an undergraduate? And Spence, I think we could both take this, but from my perspective, it depends on where you want to take your career from here, Elizabeth. If you want to stay on the business side, then I think you could take undergraduate degrees really almost in any field, although business is a great one, and still have end up, if you're thinking about finishing your undergraduate degree and then moving into this program, and then deepening your cybersecurity credentials. If you have any interest in the technical side and you're thinking about pivoting to that side of things, then of course you would want to do a CS degree or something in that field, either information sciences if you want to go a little bit softer. But that's really the main difference. There is not currently at the undergraduate level sort of the equivalent of this degree, and as Spence mentioned, we're pretty much unique. There's nothing exactly like us really in any other program that straddles sort of all three main areas: business, law, and technical. Spence, did you have perspective on Elizabeth's question?
I do.
And
so
I'll take Janice.
the truth is, so I majored in international politics, right? And just to kind of go into a little bit of my background, and my goal is to enter the government. I wanted to work for government, like a lot of idealist folks. And truth is, working for the government's really, really hard. That's extremely tough to get into those jobs, and it takes a lot of luck. And wasn't able to get into the government, and so it's total happenstance that I ended up in cybersecurity. So the truth is, you can get to cybersecurity from any degree. It does help to have a degree. A lot of the jobs in cybersecurity, even that aren't directly employed by the government, are sort of you're either interacting with the government in a significant way, or you're working for the government as a contractor. I mean, I would say that's probably the preponderance of cybersecurity jobs. So they will expect you to have some undergraduate degree, because the government tends to be pretty black and white about that stuff. But it sort of doesn't matter. However, if you, like Brian said, I mean, if you have an eye on, developing yourself technically, I mean, maybe not a full CS degree. CS degrees are pretty tough, and get pretty granular on the technology side. But a lot of organizations have great IT degrees, which will give you kind of an understanding of that intersection between IT and business. So you're not necessarily learning like some of the core principles of electrical engineering and how chips work, which truthfully is not super useful in the day-to-day practice of cybersecurity, but will give you an understanding of how an organization, builds and uses a web stack for interacting with the public, right? And that is useful stuff to know. So, you can look in that direction. Something else to think of for all the students on the line is that cybersecurity still tends to be very certification driven. So there are tons of certifications, and we can talk ad nauseum about which ones are in and which ones are out and which ones are growing in popularity, yada yada yada. But that's both a good and a bad thing, right? Getting certifications is kind of stressful and annoying, but at the same time, it gives you opportunities to shape your career as you move forward. So even if for the folks on the line who do not have a technical degree, who majored in a political science type degree like me, you can still start heading down that technical path through the certification route, and that's perfectly valid and accepted. You have to remember, in cybersecurity, we don't have enough qualified applicants. We just don't. I mean, there are jobs aplenty. And so, organizations are willing to sort of look the other way on, technical skills if you have a really great grounding in regulatory compliance issues, or vice versa. So, there's a lot of opportunities to shape your career down the road. So I wouldn't sweat about it too much. I kind of follow your heart. But Brian is right. I mean, if you really have your heart set on technical side, look at some of those more technical programs. CS is a great but really challenging example, or maybe, IT systems or IT management.
Yeah, and one final point on that, and then I'll answer Jenny, and then Rachel just gave us another, is the value of this degree is it won't replace a certification. The certifications are really tightly focused on really a particular skill set, but it is a value add regardless of sort of where you're coming from and whether you're, building a career based on an undergraduate degree in a particular area, HR, business or technical, or whether you're, pivoting and using either that credential stacking system. But you'll get the basics that'll help you get started in those credentials, and then you'll have a thorough overview and an in-depth knowledge of the regulations and laws, which is really what the higher level work involves. And so, although Spence and I have been talking, and we've got some plans in the works to maybe layer in some opportunities to get certifications as part of this degree, the core of it essentially is valuable throughout your career, as opposed to those credentials, which tend to be, get you access to particular steps in very specific places. And so to answer Jenny's question, the JD, unfortunately, and this is a regulatory requirement by the American Bar Association, which is the certification body for law schools, they do not allow us, even though the content is the same, to give you credit for taking these courses once you enter a JD program. And it's really a way that they use to try to prevent institutions from admitting folks without having taken an LSAT or other things that is part of how they evaluate the strength of a program, which frankly it has its problems and its issues, but it's what we're stuck with for now. So unfortunately, if you really do think you want to do the JD, then while taking this program will give you an excellent background that would make it easier, you'll still have to start in first year in the JD, and you won't get credit. You won't be able to count the credits. So you'd have to do the full credit load in the JD. So if you really think you might want to do the JD, then I would explore that first. And then if you decide that's not the path, then come to us. And then to answer Rachel's question, we do not currently require any standardized test for this program. Although if you have an undergraduate GPA under a 3.0, which is sort of our standard metric and cutoff, then we sometimes will ask you to submit not an LSAT usually, although if you've taken it, you can submit that. Usually it's a GRE. But if you have work or other experience, then, if you're under a 3.0, we'll tend to look at that closely, plus your statement. And then typically we'll reach out and try to have a conversation to make sure that this is the right program for you. So the short answer is no, you don't require any standardized test. The long answer is in some instances, we might ask you to submit one. All right, well, those are great questions. It gave us a chance to flesh out the core of our topic. Julie, if you could move to the next slide. I want to quickly, and I apologize, Spence, for jumping over your background, but you neatly fitted in your brief bio. Let's dive in a little bit more deeply into what you do. And if you could tell us a little bit more about the work you do with LunarLine and how you find in your day-to-day and also in the clients you interact with that law and regulatory background is valuable. This combination is valuable.
Absolutely. So I have been at LunarLine since 2012, and before LunarLine, I was at other cybersecurity focused small business that we sold. And actually, we just sold LunarLine too. I'm still under the LunarLine umbrella. My email address still says LunarLine. We were purchased by Motorola Solutions, so I'm now a Motorola Solutions employee, which has been a bit of a shift for me, but it's been interesting. So I have done a variety of tasks for LunarLine. So when I started at LunarLine, I ran all our federal programs. So LunarLine does a lot of support, provides a lot of cybersecurity services to the federal government. So that's Department of Defense, the intelligence community, the federal civilian community, and some international governments too. So, excuse me, I know that side of the world really well. From there, I took over sales, marketing, and client service for all our customers. So that threw in commercial focus groups as nonprofits and schools too. And so I worked, it was really interesting to go from, federal and Department of Defense and intelligence community focused cybersecurity to how we apply some of that same stuff on the federal civilian, in the civilian world, in the business world. And it's been fantastic to see that big, wide breadth of how cybersecurity works. And that's one of the things I feel like I try to bring to my class is I help bring examples from each one of the areas where I've worked to help folks understand not just cybersecurity, but where they want to go, and where, you know, do they think they fit better in the business world, or do they want to position themselves for the government, or do they really like academia and want to head that direction? And, you know, I've seen all those different areas. I kind of know what it takes to be successful in each one, and I can help guide students as they make those choices. But one thing, while these are very different worlds, one thing that ties them all together is that the legal obligations in cybersecurity and also the regulatory frameworks they're involved in. And I know that kind of sounds scary if you've never touched this stuff before. I remember the first time I saw a cybersecurity regulation, my head kind of exploded. And so our goal is to make it through this program so that your head doesn't explode, because the ability to understand and navigate those regulations, whether you're sitting in the, you know, downtown in the CIA, or whether you're, you know, working for Nationwide down in Columbus, or whether you're working for an academic institution, nonprofit, where have you, while the regulations are subtly different, there's a lot of commonality between them, and navigating that is a core job of any cybersecurity professional. Believe me, even the really hardcore technical folks who can't stand the legal and regulatory side still get sucked into it. And so having that framework is extraordinarily valuable to organizations, because a lot of companies are really scared. I mean, this is by regulatory standard, this evolves very fast. So new laws are created, agencies in the federal government promulgate new regulations. We have a really interesting environment now where states are coming up with their own regulations, and it is a mess. It is really hard for an organization that doesn't have a grounding or an education in these. I mean, even if they have, like, you know, one of the smartest general counsels in the world, and their CIO is the best in the country, you know, what have you, like, they're still really, really, you know, frightened about these rapid developments in this space. And that's where you come in after you've, you know, successfully cleared this program. You will have a framework to help these individuals and these organizations navigate these frameworks, understand them, shift their organization into a state of compliance that's not only, you know, purely compliant, but also optimized so that they can be compliant without impacting business operations. And one of the core things that I do on a day-to-day basis is I help organizations make that transition. So I don't work internally to Motorola. I am externally client-facing. So I go out to clients and I either assess their security posture, so I do kind of like an audit, or the more fun side of the job is helping organizations that really have no clue. And I think you will all be surprised that, you know, if you head down the cybersecurity path and you go out into the world, just how many organizations really have no clue. You know, even big ones that should know better, and help them, you know, start turning their cruise ship towards a more secure future and security posture. So it is a ton of fun. It's really rewarding. It has impact not just on cybersecurity, but on business operations. Like, it's really fun to go into, you know, a mid-sized business that's providing, you know, rockets to NASA, or at least, you know, key components, who have to comply with the cybersecurity regulation and don't know how to do it without breaking what they provide, you know, what keeps them alive. And you come in and you know, help engineer that solution that's, you know, a little bit technical because you're helping them figure out the technical side, and a little bit regulatory because you're helping them figure out the policies and procedures they need internal to bring everything together so that, you know, they can stay in business and be more secure and, you know, keep their clients happy. And it is a lot of fun. It's fast-paced. It changes constantly. You know, that we've all, you know, seen how emerging attacks and vulnerabilities pop up, and, you know, you'll often get emergency calls from clients trying to figure out how some new vulnerability report or finding impacts what they're trying to do. And it is a lot of fun. And again, so much of that is founded in a regulatory legal environment, because so much of what organizations do or have to do, or what they're struggling with, comes from these evolving regulations. And this is just a perfect time, because there's so much flux and so much change, and so much happening at the state, happening internationally, happening at the federal level. This is a great time to get involved, because it's just a lot of fun, lots of stuff happening, and there's lots of opportunities to help organizations do better, you know, not just from a security, but from a business side.
Yeah, that's a great overview, Spence, and it nicely encapsulates both what the industry looks like and the many different opportunities, and also you know, how our degree helps you prepare for a variety of roles. Let's turn now, Julie, if you don't mind going to the next slide, and talk a little bit more in depth about the Cybersecurity 1 course that you have developed for our program. As I mentioned before, the core of it is was already being taught, and we had developed it in the JD program, and then we were really pleased to have Spence's expertise to bring to bear, because part of what Lunarline does is create online cybersecurity training programs. And so we were able to use not only his substantive expertise in Cybersecurity 1, but also his deep knowledge and experience in developing effective online programs to convert Cybersecurity 1 into an online course for this. And before you jump in, Spence, one thing to note, what we do in the first semester is pair Cybersecurity 1 with Intro to American Law. And we'll get into more detail about that structure later, but that's a deliberate choice so that you're getting both the technical side grounding and the legal grounding, and that we move you through in the first 2 semesters and get you the thorough grounding in both sides. And then we move you into some more intensive topics where we do deeper dive on specific areas later. We'll talk more about that in a couple minutes here. Spence, why don't you tell us about Cybersecurity 1 and how you teach it, what you do in it, and the value of it.
Cybersecurity 1 is so much fun. So, this is kind of the challenge when you're putting together an intro course, right? So you have to get a lot of material across, folks' transom. You got to expose them to a whole ton, because you're trying to give them the foundation to be successful down the road. And it can quickly become pretty boring, frankly. But CSU is a special place, and CSU agreed to do something really, really cool. They essentially opened up their public networks for us to get hands-on in a series of labs we designed to actually go out and launch mini cyber attacks against CSU. There's not a university on the planet anywhere else that allows this, by the way. And they were just, super gracious and helpful, and made it really, really easy for us to essentially use CSU for target practice. And that opened up the really cool opportunity to create this lab-based component for Cyber 1. So yes, there's a lot of information that flows across in Cyber 1. Some of it's dry, right? I mean, I don't think anybody, even the most diehard lawyer, loves reading new regulatory compliance stuff. We do what we can to make it fun, right? But we got to introduce that. But we pair it with this lab-based component where you will go out to the internet, even if you've never done this before, even if you've never even looked at command line or typed a line of code in your life, we're going to handhold you and walk you through the process of going out on the internet, downloading cyber tools, and essentially walking through a mini penetration test, a mini hack of CSU. And it is just so much fun. Students love it. They tend to be kind of intimidated when they jump in. But again, we designed this as an intro course. We assume absolutely no knowledge, and we handhold you through the process. And so you'll run scans against CSU assets. You'll find vulnerabilities. You'll analyze those vulnerabilities. You'll find stolen credentials online. I mean, we get really hands-on, and we see some really cool stuff. And for folks that have never touched, again, don't think they have a technical bone in their body. A lot of my students last semester, had never done anything technical in their life with a computer. It's, we still handhold them through the process, and they have a ton of fun learning how to do it. And again, it is set up for you to succeed. It's not this situation where it's sink or swim. If you can't, figure out how to run this scan perfectly and tell me everything about this vulnerability, you're going to fail. That's not it at all. It's just designed for folks to see that, because one of my core objectives as a instructor in cybersecurity is to teach students to not be scared. So when you go out into the cybersecurity world, you will encounter technical concepts you don't understand. You'll get a huge vulnerability report slapped on your desk, or you'll get you'll be in the middle of a live incident, right? And you don't understand all the ins and outs of that. And that's okay, because if we can teach you to not be scared of that stuff, to understand that, you have the skill set and the knowledge to, at least at a high level, understand what's going on and figure out what to do about it, we've succeeded in our goal in this course. And so Cybersecurity 1 is all about, giving you in a very safe way, an exposure to technical cybersecurity elements, as well as core foundational regulatory compliance and basic information security stuff, so that you can go forward with confidence, knowing that you can tackle these scenarios later on down the road. And another thing to point out is that it's not. This is an online class, right? Unfortunately, I don't get to, especially nowadays. I'd love to be in a class and get to know each one of you personally and shake your hands and all that jazz. And Obviously, that's not going to happen, but it's still a very interactive class. I am available. I mean, yes, I have a day job, so I'm not always instantly available to get on the phone, but you know, I'm available for text messages. You know, we can set up times to talk. We can, you know, share screens and figure out, you know, how to, you know, what's going on and troubleshoot the technical lab stuff you folks are having. So it's not a distant online thing where it's just, you know, fire and forget and I'm, you know, totally unavailable. You know, I'm here to help introduce you to cybersecurity so that when you move on to more advanced courses like Cybersecurity 2 and the risk assessment course that Brian teaches, you know, you'll be ready to tackle that. And I guarantee you, you're gonna have a whole ton of fun in Cybersecurity 1.
Thanks, Spence. Yeah, and Spence really has done a fantastic job redeveloping the course and adding in that, that really interesting technical level that we don't currently offer to the JD students. So in some respects, the version that we're offering in this program, well, in that respect in particular, has more depth on the technical side, and also, as Spence said, makes it a little more interesting and fun. It can feel a little fraught, but there's a, it's a little bit like riding a roller coaster the first time you practice your hacking skills with those tools. So, and Spence is fantastic. Really all of our faculty were people who we selected either new to the program because of their expertise that they added to it, or because they're veterans in the program, and it's been a very successful one on the JD side. So Julie, let's move on then to the next slide, and we'll talk about the program. And I'll let you take this one, and then I'll go into a little more detail about the curriculum in the next one.
Great. Well, firstly, thank you, Brian and Spence, for that great conversation and for all the questions so far. And just a reminder, even if we start talking about something that your question isn't about, please ask any questions as they come to you. So the program details. So the way that our Master of Legal Studies in Cybersecurity and Data Privacy at Cleveland Marshall College of Law is designed is to be a part-time, fully online program where you can start in either the fall, spring, or the summer semester. I do want to mention, though, that Brian and I can be very flexible with you. So if you do want to take the program on a full-time basis or take more than 2 courses per semester, which is usually designed to be a part-time program, let us know. Or you can take 1 course a semester. We do have students doing that as well. But it is designed to be part-time, and again, you can start in the fall, spring, or summer, and our next upcoming term is the fall, which starts on September 8th. So it is a total of 30 credits. You can complete that within 2 years, so it's a total of 10 courses. We talked about the curriculum a bit, but here it is laid out for you, and of course this is subject to change a bit. But here you can see each and every course that you will most likely take throughout your tenure in this program. Like I said, it's 10 courses spread across 5 semesters. And this is built asynchronous with some synchronous components. So if you're new to online learning, that might sound new to you. So what that means is most of these courses are asynchronous, meaning that you will log on to Canvas, which is the platform that we use. You'll view lectures, you'll do the readings, any assignments that you have on your own time before the next class day. However, our professors do offer a few live classes, which are synchronous throughout the semester, so you can interact with them, interact with your other classmates, ask questions in real time. So it's a really nice balance of both, but we expect that most of you will have full-time or part-time jobs while going through this program. So we want to make it as flexible as possible. Brian, was there anything else you'd like to add about the curriculum?
Yeah, I just want to point out and reemphasize, we've got a structure here that, as I mentioned before, in the first 2 semesters through Introduction to American Law and Legal Writing, give you that very thorough grounding on the legal side, immerse you in all the core topics you need to know, and then through legal writing, give you some practice in both consuming and producing legal documents, doing your own legal research, which typically only a lawyer would do, but there are many open source materials that if you want to go deeper, you often can as a non-legal professional. And then Cybersecurity 1 Spence already described that. Cybersecurity 2 goes back over that same terrain, but does it in a format where you work as part of a group to develop technical controls to implement the concepts that you've then learned in Cybersecurity 1 while reviewing that content. And then the upper level semesters, as Julie mentioned, these are the courses that are currently planned to come online in the asynchronous format, and they go deeper into various aspects of law. Compliance is obviously a huge area, so we give you the general overview with an emphasis on cybersecurity and corporate compliance 1 and 2. Privacy law and management is the capstone on the legal side, where you learn how to develop a privacy program that's compliant with a variety of regulatory regimes. That course was developed for us by the Chief Privacy Officer of Ingram Micro, which is a Fortune 14 company in Silicon Valley. And so it's, it's really excellent content. HIPAA and privacy is a deep dive into one of the major regulatory frameworks in the US, the healthcare sector. And we chose that both because we have a really strong healthcare program at the law school, but also because it's representative of other extensive regimes. And so as Spence mentioned, knowing one regime, while it won't get you all the details for another, they tend to follow a pattern, which really is based on NIST. And then in semester 5, that one's a little more tentative. We have currently a risk assessment and compliance course that, as Spence mentioned, I teach currently in the law school with co-teach with a Master's of Information Science professor in cybercrime. We're also in discussions with a professor from the United States Air Force Academy who has extensive experience as a cyber intelligence officer in developing a course for us that focuses on the international law and those aspects. And so if he agrees to join us, which I think he will, we may offer that course in semester 5 in the first round, and then offer some of these others as electives later on. But we have a real depth in our program, and so the nice thing is we're able to fold in and out a range of courses that give you that more in-depth perspective. All right, we went a little longer than I planned. Oh, we've got one more question here from Iris. I'm not in the cybersecurity field now, and I've been told that I have to start from an entry-level position. Would these courses allow me to get up to speed on the tech side while allowing me to enter at a higher level? Spence, I'll let you take this since you've got a more detailed perspective on the technical side, and then I can amplify.
So it kind of depends on where you're at right now. So, I mean, there's no reason to, there's no reason to have to step backwards in cybersecurity. So, there are an awful lot of positions where, being an inch deep, mile wide is super helpful. There are management positions, there are program management positions. There, a lot of times, one of the key things that security folks will do, again, depending on your background, they would step in for, say, a major IT systems redesign. So like, let's say an organization is moving their entire data center to the cloud, right? So you're not necessarily in charge of that. You're not necessarily, running that whole show, but, you might step in to lead the team that is, engineering that and making that happen. So the technical question is a little tricky, right? So this is, our goal is to get you, your feet wet in the technical side and build your comfort level there. But, it's not a, master's in cybersecurity specifically, or a master's in computer science. So, you will leave Cyber 1 kind of knowing how to teach yourself. And if you are, motivated in the technical side and you really like that side, you will leave with the tools you need to start exploring that on your own, maybe chase your own certification, certified ethical hacker, or, one of the more technical certifications. And one of the things I do in Cyber 1, and actually in one of my live classes, is we get very specific about career paths. So, if you're interested in X, you should do Y. If you're interested in A, you should do B, that kind of stuff. So, there's no reason why you would, leave a high flying position right now, come to this program and have to start at the bottom again, because again, cybersecurity is multidisciplinary. But, if you have your heart set on a real technical job, there are some things you're going to need to do in addition to this program to get yourself ready for that. I have full confidence you can do it. I'm happy to help you along that pathway. But because we're trying to cover so much in a short master's program, we're not going super deep on the technical side.
Yeah, that was an excellent answer, Spence. And just to add a little bit, this degree is going to be valuable throughout your career in cybersecurity, and it's valuable along a range of pathways. If you're looking to pivot into a technical role without a technical background, then you'll have to, as Spence mentioned, do some other things to supplement that at the beginning. And then, throughout, if you're continuing to advance on the technical side. But as you move up throughout, both at the start and then throughout, and especially as you move into more senior roles, this degree provides a background that's going to be valuable throughout. But it won't necessarily get you in the door at an entry-level technical role. For that, as Spence mentioned, you might need one of those certifications that's out there in addition. Okay, so Julie, I'll turn it back to you, and you can tell them what next if you're interested, and then we'll open the floor for any additional questions to close.
Great. Yeah. So if you are interested in this program, we did have an application deadline that was on Monday, but we have extended that for the fall semester, which starts on September 8th. So the new application deadline is now August 24th. So you have a couple of more weeks to get an application in, and I really want to stress that if you're still thinking about this program, if you're not sure if this is the right fit for you, to please reach out to me. I am happy to schedule a meeting with you to talk about this. I can also put you in touch with Brian or Spence if you want to go more in depth, talk about your background a little bit to see if this makes sense, because we truly want to make sure that this is a good fit for you. If you do want to apply, our application is all online, and you can find that at csulawonline.com. It's a very simple application. And again, I'm here to walk you through that and help you with that should you need anything. Here's my contact information. As I see the attendee list, I have had the pleasure to speak with many of you, but as a reminder, here's my email, my phone number. Again, we strongly encourage you to reach out to us. That's what we're here for, and we really want to open the conversation to make sure that this is the best program for you, because we think and we know this is a great program. But before we let you go, are there any other questions that anyone has? I'm checking the Q&A and the chat. It doesn't look like it. Brian or Spence, is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I just want to thank everybody for... Oh, go ahead, Spence.
I'm just so proud of what we've created at CSU, and I really do think that it's unique nationwide in terms of what we can provide. So, if you're really thinking about heading into cybersecurity and you're looking for that multidisciplinary education that's going to prepare you to take any number of paths, this is just a perfect program for that. So it's fun. The professors are great. We have academics, we have lawyers, we have folks from business and government backgrounds teaching. It's just a really cool program. When you add in the cool kind of exercises that we're doing in Cyber 1, the hands-on exercises in Cyber 2, again, more hands-on stuff in risk assessment. It's just a really, really cool program. So I just encourage you to, if you're on the fence at all, I'm happy to talk to you, like Julie said, because there's just so much exciting stuff happening in the field of cybersecurity, and CSU can just get you going in the right direction, because this program is just a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I just want to thank everybody for joining us, and thank Spence for participating in today's program, and also for all that he does to make this such a unique and interesting program. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, Brian. Yes, and thank you to both Brian and Spence. I found this conversation to be very enlightening, and thank you to everyone who asked questions and attended. We will send you a recording of this should you want to reference it. Have a great day, and we really hope to speak to you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, Julie.